Welcome back to the Love and Victory Show with Val. I'm not Val, as you can see. It's your boy, AD. I am here serving. I'm happy to be of service to my dear friends, Brother Carter and Val. They are not with us today. They are taking care of some family business, but we have a phenomenal group of individuals here that will not only be giving their perspective on this phenomenal topic, leave the past in the past, but we might have an answer to that riddle. For those individuals who are just joining, we welcome you to the Love and Victory Show with Val. My name is Adonis Mitchell, but you can call me AD. I coach individuals and corporations on how to bridge the gap. It is not your fault that there is a gap, but it is your responsibility. Better yet, it's your duty to bridge it. And I would love to reintroduce to some the phenomenal men that we have here. I would love to start with my brother Ike. What's going on, Ike?
Man, again, I'm just blessed to be here, man. Thank you for having me, AD. Good to see you again, brother.
Always. And all the way in our other southern state, our good friend Justin. What's going on, bro?
Oh, man, I am so happy to be here. It's always a blessing to be on the Love and Victory Show. And for those that don't know me, my name is Justin Long. I am an author and man committed to personal development and always trying to grow. And I'm also a business owner. I own a veterinary clinic with my wife, who is a famous horse doctor. And I'm a grateful recurring member of the Love and Victory Show.
Yes, you are. You always give phenomenal perspectives, you and Ike. We have a new member of the Love and Victory Show family. I would love to present to some and introduce to others, a fellow Floridian, my good brother, Xav Handfield. How you doing, bro?
Man, I am doing good. So excited to be on the Love and Victory Show. My name is Xav Handfield. Xav Handfield. You all can call me Xav. I am a speaker. I am an entrepreneur, educator, and health and wellness consultant. So I help individuals think about health in a holistic approach.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Do we have an answer for that riddle in the chat?
Yeah, Christian's going to tell us the answer. But first, put up the question one more time. So it was, what is so fragile, saying its name will break it? And Christian's got us with the answer for today.
Yeah, so it looks like nobody in the comments got this one.
Can I guess before you get the answer then?
Yeah, go ahead, Justin. What you got? Because I think I have an answer as well.
All right. I think it's silence.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes!
Oh!
Yeah.
There you go.
Great mind. I love it.
All right. I had to chew on that one for a while.
Listen, me too, because when we first started, nothing came to mind. Nothing. And then right before we went to break, I was like, oh, I think I got it. Like always, when we love to start every show with a acronym that is somewhat the foundation of our conversation. And since we are discussing leaving the past in the past, it is only right that our acronym for today's episode is FORWARD. What we got, Chris?
All right. Yeah. So the acronym for the day is FORWARD, fresh, something that is new and energized. O is for opportune, happening or done at the right time, seasonable, well-timed, timely. R is risky, dangerous, uncertain. W is weathered, warned from exposure to sun, rain, or wind. A is amenable, open to suggestion. R is resilient, able to recover quickly. And D is diligent, working with careful effort.
Good stuff. That's a
Good stuff.
great acronym.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we're thinking about moving forward. It will take a fresh perspective. You can pop that back up. Appreciate you. It will take, of course, you being opportune, risky, weathered. You will be weathered when you move forward.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. I love how y'all just continue to you're so creative when it comes to bringing up those words with the acronym. Shout out to Val's phenomenal team.
Sure.
I'd like to make a brief reminder for those individuals that are joining. We have a lot of folks that are viewing. Please engage with us.
Yes.
Drop those comments. Drop those questions if you have any, as we are diving into our topic for the day, leave the past in the past. Again, we want to discuss moving forward, growth, whether that is development and growth professionally or personally, and healing of any sort that you may need to take care of. The first question that I would like to ask, since, relationships are typically the topic of discussion on many of our conversations. Shout out to Val for always bringing in the woman's perspective.
Of course.
When is it time to let go of a relationship? Let's start there. When is it time to let go of a relationship? And if you have any comments, please drop that in the chat so we can not only hear, but we want to share your perspective as well. What you got, brothers? When is it time to leave a relationship? I'll start with you.
Whew. Man. To me, in a meaningful relationship, there's three things that you have to look for: mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Okay.
And I've noticed over the years, I've been around a long time, that if a person has all three, then it's a long-lasting, withstanding relationship.
Okay.
If they have one or the other, then there's some problems. And you could choose either one. Either they don't have the spirituality, or they're not mentally, into the relationship, or there's a physical aspect of it. Any one of those that you're missing in a relationship, I've learned over the years, causes it to fail. If you have all three, which is kind of hard to find. Now, the key to this is there has to be all three on both sides.
Right.
Both you, and then you can't have one or the other. He's spiritual, but she's not. It just doesn't work.
Right.
There's some issues in between all of that. So for me, my personal experience is that you have to have or look for all three of those qualities, because if not, then you're going to have something in your past, because that's just what's going to happen. It's going to be in the past.
I got you. So those are great points to think of. Justin, what about you? When is it time to let go of a relationship?
I think that when one of the people in that relationship is no longer willing to put out the effort to make it work, that's the beginning of the end, and maybe the end of the end. I was in a relationship with a woman for 11 years, and I met her when I was very young. I had a lot of issues. She had a lot of issues. We clung to one another, as a safe haven in a storm, but our relationship was built on drinking and just getting each other through a moment. And that's a really unstable foundation for a relationship. And as I grew, and she grew, we grew in different directions, and it didn't take long for us to stop being in a relationship, but we continued to live together, and that's a terrible space to be in. And we stayed in that because we were both afraid to go try to do it on our own, but neither one of us was really trying to make the relationship work anymore. And I think that's something I would never do to myself again. I've got enough self-respect now that I would never put myself through that of living with someone who's not trying to make the relationship all that it can be.
That's right. Good. That's good. What about you, Xav?
Man, I think when God tells you to leave, and my brain just,
he be telling us, but I don't believe him sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't believe him sometimes.
I feel like you have to be tapped into the source, because the reality is that, and my brain just went to relationships in general. I'm talking about familial relationships. I'm talking about business partnerships, maybe even a job, your significant other. When God tells you to leave, because sometimes due to comfortability, even though we're not really comfortable, right? We think we're comfortable, but man, this just doesn't feel right.
Right.
So I just want to, I definitely say when God tells you to leave, but being able to decipher what his voice sounds like is like another layer to the, so you're is that me? Is it another voice? Is it, you know what I mean? So
that's good. That's good. So for me, it's mutualism. I think that relationships, regardless, to your point, Xav, whether it is familial, if it is just friendships, if it is a professional relationship, if this is, you and your job, there has to be a level of mutualism between you and whoever you're in relation with.
Right.
So once that mutualism is strained or goes away, you should start looking at or analyzing, well, let's take a look at this relationship.
Right.
And because I'm the one that is sacrificing this, I'm doing this. Am I getting that in return?
Yeah.
When we talk about, intimate relationships, a lot of times, from a male's perspective, we think, okay, well, I'm going to work, I'm doing all these things. What is she doing? We like to use the phrase, what do you bring to the table? In a sense. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But from mutualism, is there a equal amount of sacrifice on both parties? You know, I may be doing this, but since I'm doing this, will you do this?
And it might look differently, right?
Right. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Because every relationship is different, regardless if it's an intimate one or not.
It is.
But is does the relationship have a level of mutualism attached to it? If I call you, will you pick up the phone?
Right.
Because when you call me, I pick up the phone.
Right.
If I text back, do I not hear back from you, 6 hours, another
Right.
day,
Right.
right? When I'm on my last leg and I need, $5 for lunch, can I count on you?
Right.
Because if you were on your last leg, you could count on me.
Right.
So mutualism is big for me, regardless of the type of relationship that you have. Now, same thing with that, relationships, lifestyle, or habit. Of course, we all have a habit that we would like to, or we had a habit that we, had to let go of, and we switched. At what point in time do you need to make that assessment to change that habit? That one habit that you may have had in the past that is no longer serving you. When do you make that adjustment, Justin?
Whew. My big one was alcohol.
When we kick it over to one of the brothers. Hey, wait a minute. Why you starting with me? Hold on. Let's go somewhere else.
No, this is a hot one for me. I tried to drink all my problems away when I was young, and it worked for a while, but it was just masking the problem, and the problem itself never went away. And for me, when I was so miserable that drinking didn't stop my misery, I was ready to end my life because I felt like I didn't have any place else to go. And that was the point that something had to change for me. And in retrospect, I wish that I could have come to that conclusion years before I got to that point, because I suffered for a long time. But, I think, change is hard. Change is scary. And for most of us, we have to get so uncomfortable that the unknown is a better choice than the known. And that's a hard place to get to. But if you are open-minded enough to and self-aware enough to assess your situation and to take input from other people, I think you can arrive at the conclusion that change is necessary long before you get to the point that you just can't stand it the way it is anymore.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
That's real good.
So we're talking about the past, and we want to thank each and every one of our viewers for joining in and sharing your input and perspective. If there are any comments or questions that you have, please drop them in the comments so that we can make sure that we are engaging with you as well. So we see these questions pop up on social media frequently. If you could tell your teenage self, 18 years, freshly graduated from high school, about to take on the world, you think you know it all. If you could spend or have one conversation with that teenage you, what would you say? I'll start with you, Xav.
Ooh, man, what would I tell my little 18-year-old big-headed self? I would definitely tell myself to stay the course. There were so many times in college where I got distracted by things or people, and I was just very emotionally immature. I was just an immature young man, but I thought I knew everything, and my parents couldn't tell me anything, and I was just so bullheaded and so sure of myself. But looking back, I'm like, bro, you didn't know anything
At all.
You didn't know anything, right? You lived like 18 years as opposed to your parents.
Sheltered life,
right?
Sheltered,
a real good life.
Yeah,
a real good life. And so I would tell my younger self to and make sure you have discipline, make sure you listen to the words of the elders. And that's funny coming from me, right? I'm a mentor, right? So I think about my 17-year-old mentors that's probably not going to listen to me, but like, okay, what do I have to do to make sure that I don't make the same mistake? So that's why mentorship is so important to me, because I was that bullheaded. I thought I knew everything. I'm very confident in myself, but just had like a lot of flaws. I was a broken little boy. And so I would tell that little broken little boy, keep going, stay disciplined, and make sure that you are surrounding yourself with individuals that are going to push you to even higher heights.
That's good. What about you, Hank? What would you tell that newly graduated young Isaac as he is walking the stage?
Man, so turning 18, I grew up in the church all my life. My whole family's, my grandfather's a pastor and all this type of stuff. And when I got 18, I'm not doing church no more. I'm tired. We're going 4 days a week, 3 times on Sunday. I'm tired. And I did, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when I got off to college and, you know, got to doing my own thing. And there was a lot of things I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get out and experience
Yeah.
some of those things. And I think what happened was when I got out to experience those things, I didn't realize the consequences
Mm-hmm.
of some of those things and got comfortable in some of those areas.
Yeah.
I can, you know, say on here, I've spent some time in Harris County, Fort Bend County, Brazoria County, because, you know, I wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I walked away from the church. And the problem is with that is, and so I would tell myself then, stay with God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Stay with God. And you would have avoided all the stuff you had to go through, because when I had to go through it and I finally came back to the church, because this whole time I knew that there was a calling on my life, but I ran from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of my thing. If I do bad and do wrong, he ain't gonna want me. So
Right.
totally wrong. And what I learned is that, you know, despite everything that I've done, he still favored me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he still groomed me,
Mhm.
and he still made and molded me into what I am today. So I would tell my young self, stay with God.
That's good. Justin?
You know, I wrote a book called The Righteous Rage of a 10-Year-Old Boy, which is 192 pages of things that I wish that I had known when I was 18.
Let's just talk about the title of the book first.
Yeah.
Let's get
Righteous
into
Rage.
the righteous rage.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know a 10-year-old that doesn't have some righteous rage?
I do.
Okay. Who wasn't a
there's-
10-year-old with righteous rage?
Yeah.
You know?
I know it. It's just there's so much that I didn't know that I needed to know. But if I only had a minute to talk to my younger self, I think that I would say that that I am good enough, no matter what impression I get from other people, no matter what I think my dad thinks of me, or kids at school, or all the things that don't matter.
Right.
I tell myself, believe in myself, and that I've got everything that I need to make it in life.
That's good.
That's good.
I would have to try my best to condense it into however much time I was given, because there's so much that, you know, I would of course tell myself, you know, I could say that stay single, you know, don't focus on the girl
Mhm.
or the girls, you know, stay focused on these things. But if I only had like a minute, I would do my best to try and condense the definition of consistency and discipline in that minute.
Yeah.
Because transitioning from high school to college, I can say that I was a great student. Grades weren't an issue with me, but I knew that I was smart, and I had been told that I was smart
Mhm.
since I can remember.
Yeah.
Right.
So because of that, I was a student that if a project was due on Friday, I would start it Thursday around 10, 11,
Right.
and I would still get a good grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
But had I started that project when I had, you know, received it, I would have not only freed myself up to be able to do a lot of things, I would have
Right.
been finished sooner,
Yeah.
but it just would have established a certain level of discipline that I did not have when I got to college.
Right.
And that just translates into so many other areas in
It
your
does.
life.
That's right.
I played athlete. I was an athlete. So playing sports, you have to be disciplined in the weight room and all those other things.
Right.
You have to be consistent. So that's what I would tell myself, because again, that consistency and discipline would translate into my relationships.
Right.
It would translate into some things that I had that I would consider non-negotiables.
Mhm.
Right. There's some things that I negotiated with. Okay,
Mhm.
well, you want to do this? Well, I don't want to do that. Well, let's do
Right.
it.
Right.
Right. So that's what I would tell my high school self. Abigail, you got something?
Yes, I had a question for you guys. You know, I gotta be like Val a little
Oh,
bit. I
she got
gotta
to
I
be
gotta
the
bring
Val.
that
Oh,
spirit,
she
you know
got
what
to
I
be the
mean? So I do have a question for you guys. And AD, you kind of touched on it, mentioned like being single
Mhm.
and in a journey of like self-growth and healing. From a man's perspective, you know, as a woman, a lot of times we think we can fix people or
Mhm.
change them and stuff like that. So what is your opinion on like being in a relationship during your self-growth journey? Like, is it possible, and how do you go about that, and how do you set the expectations for the other person as well?
Justin, what you got?
Well, I think my self-growth journey is my entire life. So I don't know that there's just a straight period of time there. But I also think that the only way we learn is through experience. So, we need to have some bad relationships when we're young so that we know how to be in a relationship, the things not to do, what we're willing to put up with, what we're not willing to put up with, where our boundaries are, how to set and enforce those boundaries. Like all that stuff is trial and error. And nobody comes out of the gate and does it all right from the beginning. So I think it's important to don't be afraid to go through the experiences, whether they're relationships or jobs or just, all the things in life that cause us pain. Like pain is where the growth is at. And you should lean into that and you'll get a lot farther in life.
Yep. Ike, what do you think?
Man, for me, to Abigail's question, I was the problem.
At least you're honest.
I'm just being transparent. That's what the show is about, right? I was the problem. So it was hard to maintain a relationship. And like Justin just said, you have to go through the trials and tribulations, through the pain and the heartbreak. But at that time, there was no heartbreak for me. It was like, go on to the next one. But you get to a certain point in your life and things happen in life where now you actually want a sustainable, real relationship. But in my past, back then, it was like groceries.
Yeah. Back at the convenience store.
Convenience store.
So, what about you, bro?
Man, I think that people need to have seasons. I always thought it was weird because I wasn't this way, so I thought it was weird. People jump from person to person to person to person, and the reason why I say that is because sometimes you have to do the work. Not sometimes, most times you have to do the work. So, in yourself, to your question, when you're going to that self-growth journey, it is I feel like it's a lifelong thing, but you just got to know in the specific season, like, I need therapy. Yeah. Like, I won't be any good to anyone.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And in that same breath, I do realize that sometimes you have that, that woman and, the fellas, you have that woman that just pushes you and propels you to go to that next level while you on that self-growth journey, while you're building your empire. Look at Magic Johnson, right? Cookie has been down for, since before, and all these other people.
Samuel Jackson's wife, Washington's wife.
Right. That's right. So I'm 100,000% sure now that I'm a newlywed. Big ups to my wife, Jasmine. I love you, baby.
Let's go.
And so I'm totally sure that I know that they wouldn't have built their empire without them. So you need both. You need both seasons, but it's important to know the season that you are in.
That's right.
So you can be like, okay, let me just lock down, go in the lab for 6 months. I'm not going to talk to nobody. I'm not going to have sex. I'm not going to do any of that stuff so that I can have a clear mind.
So I think the challenge is some individuals have a challenge, or they don't do well with being alone.
Right.
And I mean, they don't have a significant.
Why is that though?
So a lot of things. We can go from a biblical standpoint, how, God looked at Adam, who was in his purpose, who was doing the work,
right?
Which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
And then after he realized that the purpose that he had given Adam was too large for him, he created a helpmeet for him. So that's my biblical reference for the day. So I think with a lot of us, men, when we are looking to find ourselves, or we are going through our maturation process, it's scary, and we don't want to do that alone. We go through the transition from high school to college, or from high school to the military, or high school into the real world, whatever your journey may be. And some of us, I feel, don't want to go through that process without someone else to either assist or be there for emotional support, even though we don't want to call it emotional support, even if it's just for a physical connection. I think there is something that is missing that we are looking for. And to your point, there's a certain level of work that we have to do to get that fulfillment internally,
right,
instead of trying to find that externally. So what I think that I agree with Justin that, your life's journey is where the work is going to come in.
Right.
But there's a portion of that journey that you should do on your own. I think that there is a portion as you're growing up that you should hit your head a couple of times because you have done a business venture, or you have, applied for this job, or you tried this major and it didn't necessarily work for you. But I think you should do that on your own first.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be something that's going to come up in that relationship that you, as, again, the man in the relationship, or the leader in the relationship, you're going to have to navigate, in a sense, once you connect with someone else. And there's going to be things that, they're going to bring into the relationship, their experiences. So I think that there is a season that you should enjoy and really work on yourself in singleness. And there's also a season where you should be preparing yourself for a relationship, whatever that means for you.
I think that community is so important. I love that you mentioned God did not want man to be alone, right? But I can't help but think about the area of brokenness due to sin that we feel like we have to have, and I'm talking about including but not limited to soul ties. Making sure that brokenness is like, I can't do this alone. And my brain immediately went to was COVID. COVID was really, really hard for a lot of people, including myself, a single man living in an apartment, the four walls, couldn't go anywhere because I had to sit with myself. A lot of times, young people, old people, and everybody in between, the sitting with yourself is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. We do not like what we see. And because of those things, it's just like, oh man, I'm attached to this person. I'm attached to that person. So like healing that brokenness is going to be a key factor with loneliness and just having that other person.
That's good. I think we have a question or a comment that we want to bring up from the.
Oh yeah. So we actually have a kind of an anecdote just from a longtime member of the Love and Victory family, Stephen.
What's up, Stephen?
Yeah, he was just saying he would tell himself not to go to college. Although his elders and mentors had the best of intentions, it wasn't right for him. He did it because he was too afraid to do what he felt was the right thing for him. And in the end, he ended up finding a career he loved, and he only wished he would have had time to find it sooner instead of worrying about school. But that's just him.
That's a good point, Stephen. Coming from being a college athlete and working in youth ministry at church, mentoring, I've always said that the college experience, everyone should experience college at least for a year, regardless of what that is. Like, go to college, go away, because so often we are limited to our zip code when it comes to us growing up from high school and then transitioning into adulthood.
Right.
But when you go to college, even if you stay in your city, if you go to college, you're going to be exposed to people who don't think like you, don't talk like you, don't look like you, did not go to the same church as you, did not go to the same high school, regardless of what that is. So I think that everyone should experience college. And then if you feel after that semester or year that college is not the space for you right now, then by all means, do your thing. Because I feel the same way about individuals who go straight from, high school to the military. Because I have a brother who went straight out of high school into the Army, and there's just a disconnect because there's certain things that he just is not aware of because he didn't go directly into college. He's very successful doing his own thing now, but from a social connection standpoint, it's just a little different. But thank you, Stephen, for sharing.
Thank you. Can I speak on that a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
I think it's an important point of living your own life and taking advice from other people versus doing what other people want you to do. And I think that's a really big deal when it comes to having kids. I know so many women who have kids simply because their mom wants grandbabies to play with. And that is the worst reason in the world to have a kid. It's an absolute life-altering event. And I think that we let our parents pressure us into things, but people that we respect, our friends, and we end up doing something with our life that we don't want to do, whether it's a career or a relationship or kids or whatever. And I think it's important to take that advice, but be willing to discard the stuff that doesn't apply to you and be true to your own desires.
That's good.
But I think people mean well. Like, people genuinely mean well.
Right.
And then the reality is, like, how many young people, a lot of us are mentors in here, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that have absolutely no idea what it is that they want to do with themselves, what their passions are, what their interests are. So they need individuals like us. And sometimes, we'll give advice from our vantage point, from our experiences. And that's just what we think is best for them. But they don't know any other. So they're going to do that. So I want to believe in my heart, people like mean well. It's not like, go to college because, that's what I did. Like, no, like, I love what you said, because it's something about 17, 18-year-olds coming together. My mentor always said, college is a good time to get a significant other, because never in your life are you going to be around thousands of peers your age, right?
That's right.
You graduate and it's just like, it's the real world and you meet people at happy hours network, you know, it's online dating now or whatnot. So it's something to be said about us all being 18 years old, all just away from our parents and just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So
collectively,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that Justin, to your point, you know, and to what Xav said, I think I agree. I like to have hope and believe that people mean well, but I also believe that they are giving me advice or trying to lead me in a direction based on their own experience.
Right.
So if your experience wasn't good, what type of feedback will you be giving me?
Right.
You know, you may have had a negative experience in college, you know, where you failed, flunked out, whatever. Thank God he did not. He's an HBCU grad. Shout out to Bethune Cookman. But if that was your experience, when you talk to me about college, it's not going to be, oh, this is a great time. We were doing this. I met some of my best friends in college. It's the best for you. That's not going to be what his experience was. It's not what they're going to share with me.
Right.
Likewise, if you went into the military, right, and the military was a great experience for you, you know, I think everybody should serve the country. Right. That is your experience.
Right.
But I also have some horrific stories from individuals who went into the military, regardless of the branch, and they're like, yeah, do one contract and get out. Yeah. So I think we do mean well because we want to make sure that you don't experience the negative that I experienced, because there is a season of hurt that you don't want to go through that I went through, and I'm trying to shelter you from that. So I think that people do mean well. It's just the experiences in the sense that they are sharing. So we are here at the Love and Victory Show talking about leave the past in the past. Abigail, did you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to say I really agree with you on that. Like, I'm the type of person, I give advice to people because I think, you know, I think I have it all figured out. But sometimes I have to take that step back and be like, you know, that person's experience isn't mine, and what is right for me and what I would have done may not be what's right for them in their situation. And so I wanted to stress the importance of like going to therapy and like, you know, if you're really struggling with something, like, yes, it's good to turn to other people and get those outside experiences, but it really should be a decision within yourself that you've prayed about, that you've, you know, kind of really sat with and thought about it, rather than like just taking what, you know, your best friend says or what your mom says or what your dad says and stuff like that.
Abigail, you said something, it made me think about sometimes the other end of that spectrum are individuals projecting their fears. They have never done half of anything, to be quite true. But they're like, okay, Abigail, like, don't go to therapy because X, Y, and Z. Don't go to college. Don't go to the military. They've never been outside of their zip code, yet those fears. So I think it's important to understand. And again, I don't know if when I was an 18-year-old, excuse me, I would have known like, okay, well, this is Ike's fear, him telling me this, that, and the third, right? Hindsight is always 20/20. But again, if you're watching this, do not project your fears on your children, on your mentors, on the people at your church. Don't do that, because their experience might be different, totally different than yours. And just pray them off and have them go with God and all that they do. But your fears, don't let that be anybody else's fears.
That's right.
And one thing I think we should look at, to your point, is there's something to say in projecting your fear on someone else, and trying to guide them based off of your position or posture of fear. But there's something different in just sharing the fears that you have, because I think that a lot of times parents don't share their fears with their children. So I'll take, for example, if you are a parent who didn't go to college and your child is getting ready to make that transition, and you are fearful because they're going to another state. No family lives there. You're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for college. But I think that one of the things that parents have a misstep in is, hey, this is where I'm coming from as your father, as your mother. You know, you were a great student. We've never had any issues with you, you know, as far as extracurricular activities. You never brought anybody home. We didn't do anything like that. But this is how I feel. And I'm not telling you this because I don't want you to go. I just want you to understand my position. You know, I'm probably going to be up all night worrying, praying, tarrying long, just because I am, you know, worried about what you may be doing in this other state, in this other city. I don't want that to stop you. And I don't want your decisions to be made based off of what I'm sharing. But I just want to submit that to you, that this is what is going on. Because I think that growing up, my mother was all for go to college. Yes. I don't care where you go, just leave. My father
was like, well, I'm a little worried.
But he didn't share that.
Right.
But I would hear these, stories from my mother after the fact. Your dad was worried. You took the car and all this other stuff. He didn't know how he was going to be able to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So I think that, sharing those experiences or just sharing your position on something with your children, it opens you up to a level of vulnerability that your children may not necessarily be aware of.
Right.
And it not only allows them to look at you differently, but it allows them to process differently as well. Justin, what do you think about that?
1000%, man. My parents never shared anything with me like that.
Mhm.
Like I had no idea that they had any doubts and fears about anything or ever worried about me. They didn't share any of that stuff. My dad dictated things to me and laid down the law and then punished me. And then that was it. That was my whole understanding of what being an adult was all about. And I was very, very naive and misguided when I launched into the world, expecting to be, that way. And then I wasn't. So
As many of us are, because I think our parents did their best to shelter us for good reason. Right. You don't want to, expose your child to some things unnecessarily. Yeah. But I think there are some things that we should be exposing our children to.
Absolutely.
Because the world is going to expose them to it, whether we want them to or not.
And for me, I'm a single father of 2 girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so my college experience being a young man,
mm-hmm.
And y'all know where I'm coming from.
Oh, we're going to dive into it soon. That's my next question.
And I got 2 daughters going off to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you talked about earlier, sharing that fear. And I shared that fear because of my experience as a man. And my whole conversation was, I'm going to tell you what you're going to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear it, it won't be foreign to you because of my experience as a young man in college. And I knew how I was, and they're going away. So I think as a parent, my fear for them, I shared that with them. And as of now, my daughter's 27 and 25. I don't have any grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
They're not married. Nothing happened in college because I shared that fear of how I was, or it may be on a different perspective when they get to college. So.
Yeah, you shared the warning label.
Yes,
a lot of folks don't read the warning label.
Yes,
which is good. So since you opened that door, Brother Ike, one of the questions that we wanted to dive into with relation to our past is that a good old player conversation.
Ooh,
right?
Okay. Here we go. Yeah.
At any point in time in your past, whether it be high school, college, or your young adult life, have you ever been a player? And the follow-up was, how did you grow through that? Were you a player? Oh, I love how they just shot right to Ike on the camera. You see that? They didn't go to nobody else but Ike.
Put it on the player.
So since we're already here, Ike, give us a little bit about your. Well, let's do this first. What would you define, or how would you define a player?
Whew, man, player. Just one that just really has no conscience about relationships.
Okay.
Has no conscience about love, in a relationship type of thing. And a man that feels that the more the merrier.
Okay. Okay.
And growing up in my younger days, I'm going to say my younger days, that's exactly how I was. As I mentioned, in college, it was about numbers. I'm just being transparent. It was about numbers, and then you get a name for yourself.
Yeah.
Because of that. But again, just being a player, you just really didn't have any conscience of being settled down, committed. Any of those things, it just was not in your vocabulary. And you wanted to do as much and be as much as you could. But then you grow, and then life happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened to me is to come out of my player role, it was actually a young lady that changed all that.
Mhm.
You know, because of her perspective and you know how she was very spiritual, and it brought me back into the spiritual realm where I was supposed to be in the first place, and that changed everything. To be committed, to want a loving relationship, to be married, the whole 9 yards. But as a player, I did it all. You know, just ones and twos and threes and quartets and
Not quartet. Lord Jesus. Justin, what about you?
Oh, you're gonna put me up after that?
Yeah, we're going right to Florida. But how would you define what a player or the mannerisms of a player?
Man, I would never have considered myself a player, but it's not because I didn't want to be. It's because I didn't have any of the things required.
Good answer.
But I will tell you my experience, and then you tell me whether you think that was being a player or not. But,
Okay.
and everything I know about myself, I know in retrospect, right? I didn't understand my motives at the time. But, you know, I was in a relationship. I went from high school to the Army, and that was my education into the world, which was drinking and partying and chasing women. So, you know, I found a woman finally who was willing to let me come back again a second time, and I immediately moved in with her. And I know now that what I was seeking was someone to accept me and someone to love me, and which, you know, feelings that I never got, you know, from my family when I was a kid. I just needed acceptance and love, and she gave that to me, but it only worked for a little while. And at some point I found that I wanted to get that from somebody else. And so, you know, I became a serial line crosser, I guess, where every time we would go out to a bar or go to a party or something, that, you know, I'm trying to hook up with anybody there that's willing to pay attention to me, you know, despite the fact that my significant other is, you know, sitting across the room. And I was unfaithful over and over and over because I was chasing a feeling. And and I think for me, that behavior couldn't change until I learned how to accept myself and give myself the love that I needed, instead of trying to get it from somebody else.
That's good.
That's good. That's
We
good.
now this is a first for me. So this is a new little feature we got here on the Love and Victory Show with Val. We have a phone call, and we want to, of course, have this person introduce themselves, and then are they sharing a question, comment? What are we doing?
Okay, so this is my first time doing a phone call too,
Okay,
you guys.
yeah.
So it should be Miss Carter here on the line. I'm about to turn her on.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. All right, she should. Can you hear us okay, Miss Carter? There might be a little bit of a delay. Miss Carter, are you there? Can you hear us?
No, she can't be the first person to call in and it not work. That's not supposed to be good.
You're okay, Abigail. Don't stress about it.
Maybe I can get her to call me on my phone. Hold on. Give me a second, y'all.
While we wait for that to while we wait for Val to hop on, I'll share. So I was played my freshman year in college, and finding out that I had been played sent me into a deep
Spiral.
Not a spiral. I was depressed because this was. I don't give too much information because folks are listening and they're gonna know who this is. So we're gonna move forward. But it sent me to a deep depression in a sense. I was listening to all of the sappy R&B songs. Robin Thicke was on repeat. You name it. I was in there.
Lost
Right?
Without You.
Listen. It was another song. It's called "I Need Love." But anyway. So my roommate was also going through a breakup as well, and it's so emotional in our room. It's dark. We had candles in the room. We would listen to R&B music. I'm so serious. So transitioning from that semester to the next, I made a vow in the sense that the individuals that I would be in relation with, I would be very upfront and transparent.
Right.
I wouldn't hide anything. I would put it out on the street.
Right.
And many of my peers would perceive me as a player. But I was like, no, I'm not a player. I may be entertaining multiple people, but they know what's up. Like this is what it is. Like I don't have a girlfriend. I don't want a girlfriend.
Right.
I just want this.
Yeah.
And if you are willing to oblige,
right,
we can relate to one another.
Right.
If not, we can keep pushing. I'm gonna talk to you in the student center. I'm, still gonna have lunch with you, all this other stuff.
Right.
So how I got through that, I started serving much more actively in youth ministry. And then when you are in that position, you see them starting to model a lot of the behaviors that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I always tell people, mentors, parents, you are a role model, whether you want to be one or not.
That's right.
It just depends on what type of role you're modeling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So after seeing that and getting, hit in the face in a sense, I was like, okay, well, I have to shift some stuff, especially if I'm going to be the person that these individuals are looking up to or looking to for advice, for whatever. I have to make sure that my walk, in a sense, is as close to being right as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So I was single for some time afterwards, and then ultimately ended up getting to a relationship with someone at the church. But it is what it is. That's my player moment. Did we get Val back on the phone?
I hope so. Can you hear us okay, Val?
I sure can. How y'all doing?
Well. Look who just had to stop by.
Well, you know what? I was sitting on my hands and over here just listening to you guys, and I want to tell you guys you are representing the brand in excellence as you always do. But I got something for you guys.
Uh-oh.
And here's my question. When a person is holding on to their past, and their past reflects someone or a loved one or a sibling or, just a cousin, and they can't seem to move past it because they really deeply care about that individual. What recommendation, because they're going to see them around, they're going to be around, what kind of advice could you guys give to them with moving forward for themselves so that they could be in a healthier place?
Just for clarity purposes, did this person experience like hurt, or was there like an upset between the two and they still have to be in relation with them?
I think it's probably some hurt, probably some disappointment. That person, with some hurt and disappointment.
Okay, thank you, caller, for calling in. We appreciate we appreciate it.
I love it.
We would love for you to stay tuned to the Love and Victory Show with Val. Thank you.
I gotta get the phone.
Yeah. That's how the callers work. That's how you got to stay on and listen for the answer. That's how when you call into the radio station, they don't keep you on the whole show.
Nah.
Okay, I have to sound like I'm gonna have to do you like I do Brother Carter. I am the host and you co-host today, but I love you anyway.
Right, but you a caller today, and the caller calls in, and then we get back to the conversation. You can call back, but you can call back.
Oh my God,
okay,
you can call back.
Guys. Bye.
No problem. So it's a great question, especially when we talk about past experiences. So if there's been a situation where an individual has done you wrong, or there's been an upset, a disagreement in a sense between you, but because of the familial relationship or just the relationship amongst friends or the peer group in a sense, you still have to interact or engage with that person in a sense. So how does one move past that? And because everyone always says we're going to keep it cordial, but I think a lot of times what we mean as being cordial is, appreciate you, Brother Carter. What we mean with being cordial is, in a sense, being fake and phony, right? We're just trying to maneuver through without really experiencing or working through whatever that hurt or upset was. So what would you guys suggest for that individual who is experiencing an upset or had a situation to where things are not going well, but we need to move forward in a sense? How does one do so?
I would say make sure you know what your boundaries are.
That's good.
Understanding what your boundaries are going to be key, because most of us have family members that we don't click with or mesh with the best and whatnot. And
that's cool.
And that's perfectly fine. And I saw this meme a long time ago, and it's like, I'm too old and I'm too grown to be in places where like I feel uncomfortable, right? Especially I have a car, I have a home, I have these are all real things. So understanding your boundaries, this person makes me feel uncomfortable. Don't be anywhere you feel uncomfortable.
That's right.
Because you have the right to leave.
You have the right to leave, or
you have the ability to.
Right. Or get around someone, maybe, it's a family member, get around a family member that you do feel comfortable with. If we're at grandma's house or whatever the case may be, especially if that person has hurt you. So understanding what your boundaries are and knowing like, okay, well, this person also must know my boundaries in terms of, and that's why communication is so important as well. So setting those boundaries and kind of being unwavering in them so that you don't feel uncomfortable, so that your mental health doesn't spiral, that you don't get depressed. It doesn't trigger you to revert back to, what happened or how you used to be. Understanding those boundaries and being firm with them, I think will definitely be a major key.
That's good. What about you, Justin?
It's a challenging thing, on the surface, I can say that there's a statute of limitations on holding a grudge against somebody, especially in a relationship. And if I'm not willing to forgive that person, I can't let this thing go, then the relationship has to go, right? It's one or the other, but you can't keep bringing stuff up over and over and over. So, but I think in reality, that's a lot harder. And my example for this is my wife's mother. She lives with us and we are oil and water. And my therapist tells me, and then on a good day, I can do this, that I have to accept her for who she is. And if I can't do that, then either I need to go or she needs to go. And that's hard. I have to work that. It has to be something that I'm conscious about and not just knee-jerk reacting my way through that relationship. So, for me, it's can I forgive this person for this? If the answer is yes, then I'm going to forgive that and forget it and move on like it didn't happen. If the answer is no, then I need to figure out what plan B is, because you can't keep going being miserable all the time. It's a bad way to live.
I got you. Yeah. Here's the thing about oil and water. They may not mix, but if you add some other stuff to it, you get you a nice vinaigrette. Put that on the salad. You're good to go. Good to go. What about you, Ike?
I think for me, answer that question and to the young brother said about boundaries is, if I'm in a situation where I'm hurt or feeling some type of way, then all of a sudden you have limited access to me, limited access to my life, limited access to my privacy. You're limited now. So there's, like you said, there's boundaries now. We've got some boundaries because you can't be a part of this. You can't be a part of that. It's limited access. And that's just the biggest thing for me. I can forgive. I can probably forget, but you're limited. That's what I would say.
That's good. So one of the things at this stage of my life, as I've, grown and matured and done the work, as you've mentioned, I do my best to offer grace to all parties.
Right, because we want grace.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I do. I want to give it.
Yeah.
Listen.
But when there is an upset or there's an issue that has taken place, pet peeve of mine is when there's an issue, but we talk to everybody else except for me, and we got the issue. So let's establish that first. Let's do this. We know it's a problem. Me, you have an issue. Let's talk about it.
Right.
I can initiate. You can initiate. I really don't care. Let's just don't go to Ike and say you got an issue with me. We can discuss that.
Right.
So offering grace is something that has definitely helped, because when I offer grace, it gives me the moment to take a second and say, really view things from their point of view, or at least try to. If there's an issue, okay, well, why is it that they feel this way? What did I do? What might I have done that may have been perceived a certain way that would have caused them to react this way or feel this way or whatever? And then after, offering grace, I establish those boundaries and say, hey, well, if we want to be in relationship, one, we got to talk about this. We have to work through this, because one, I don't want to do it again. Two, I don't want you to be in a situation or feel the way that you're feeling anymore, because when you do, it changes the interactions that we have. It's not a natural, fun situation. It's awkward. And I don't go places where that awkward vibe is there. I will
weird vibes.
Yeah, I will dip quick.
Exactly.
Y'all feel that? Okay, I'm out. I'm about to go. Because I have coworkers and friends that always talk about, hey, we're gonna go out and do this. We're gonna go out and drink. I say, I got a bar at home if I want to drink. I don't need to do all those things.
Right.
Well, that's not fun. It's fun for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I get to control whatever it is I want. If I want to cook something real quick, I can. If I want to sit with my wife and enjoy whatever it is we want to enjoy together, I get to do that in the comfort of my home. If I want to go out and experience things with other people, I want to do so in a space that is conducive to the environment that I want to be a part of.
Yep.
And it's not awkwardness
at
all.
Right.
So I think that's the big thing, offering individuals grace. And by doing so, it gives you just a moment to really look at, okay, well, where are they coming from?
Mhm.
What's their perspective?
I like that.
We're going to continue this conversation real soon, right after we take this break.
Yes. Before we take our break, though, Ike has his show this morning, right? On Raise the Praise. So he'll be leaving us early. So before we cut to break, Ike, could you give us your final thoughts? Tell us your experience today on the Love and Victory show, where they can find you, who you are, what you do.
Okay.
I do a lot now. He's be doing a lot.
I am known as Ike. I do have a radio show as well on Raise the Praise 100. It's called the Saving Silly Morning Show. I'm also the owner of Gospel Company Entertainment. Actually, we have a comedy show coming up Mother's Day, May the 13th, Giggles and Gospel for clean comedians is what we do. And clean comedy. I also have a real job.
Amen.
I'm a VP in the oil and gas industry. Have been for 25 years. I'm also a member of Fresno Mount Carmel Baptist Church as well. And we also have a pop-up today. I'm going to put that in there. 1435 Trammell in Fresno, Texas.
Come on, plug. There we go.
And again, I'm single father of two daughters now that are both grown and doing their own thing. God bless them. And I'm just thankful, be around these brothers fellowshipping again. It's always a blessing to come and, get men together and be transparent about the walk in the journey in a man's life. I will say, it's not easy, but, when you have conversations like this, and I looked up at the number, I saw how many people was listening, and I'm sure putting in those are men. It just feels good that we're able to come together and have this transparency and conversation amongst men. And it's always a blessing to hear and be a part of it. Thank you, Abigail.
Yes, of course. We love having you here,
Thank
and we'll have you on again soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, we'll be back after this break.
All right.
And we have been really just diving into, of course, the past and how we can leave things in the past. We had a couple of questions from our phenomenal viewers out there in the digital space. We'd love to get some of those questions up on the board so we can not only discuss them, but hopefully answer them. What we got, Chris?
All right. So for our first question, it comes from Martin. He asks, do you think when you go forward, you shouldn't look back to your past?
That's a great question. And with the analogy that I used with regard to driving, of course, you have that front mirror in a sense that you are looking through consistently as you are driving, but you always have, and you need to, in a sense, use your rear view mirror when you need to maneuver. I think the benefit of that is you take those experiences that you had in the past and they kind of guide you in a sense, or they are those barriers that will allow you not to make this wrong turn because you've already made that decision and you know how that's going to turn out. What do you think, Xav?
Sticking with the car analogy, I think that, you're going forward, you're not going backwards, but you need to, when you're looking, make sure I answer the question correctly. When you're going forward, you shouldn't see in your past. I think being mindful of your blind spots. When you're going forward, I'm going to be aware of my blind spots. I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't do that, or And so I think that I'm a both and kind. I'm a both and kind of guy. Like, yes, you're going forward. Don't look back. You're not going that way. But since you've already been that way, you're aware of your blind spots. Ooh, there is a hole in the middle of this hole in the middle of the road, or there is debris. So I need to be mindful of that.
Justin, what about you?
I think it's important to look back and learn from the mistakes that you make so you don't repeat those going forward. It's the GPS shows you the starting point and the ending point and where you are on that route.
Good.
And if you don't look at back at the start point, you don't ever realize how far you've come.
That's good.
But, knowing how I could have handled that situation better, because even though you're not going to repeat your past, hopefully, you're always going to be confronted with the same types of situations, interactions with people that you handle poorly and you could have done better. And if you don't reflect on what you did and how you could have done it better, then you'll never improve. So I think it's really important to keep one eye on that mirror.
That's good. I always say that life is going to always give you a test in a sense. And regardless if you pass or fail the test, it's going to present that same scenario, maybe in a different situation, just to see if you're going to pass it again.
I believe that.
What else we got in the chat?
All right. This next question is from Jonathan. He asks, do you think communication takes a big part in a relationship?
In every yes. See, I don't know how to say it in any other languages, but even like, and that's every relationship, right? The word of God, it's probably in Proverbs somewhere, but it talks about a harsh something. Help me out, Bishop. A harsh tone, something with wrath or whatnot. But that's all communication one-on-one. And again, I'm a newlywed, so I'm realizing that it's not just like what you say. It's like how my face. My wife will be like, "What's wrong with you?" or whatnot. It's because my face is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm tired." This, that, and the third. So, communication is. I majored in communication. I don't know if you knew that. Fun fact. And I'm still like a work in progress with communicating effectively. Yes. We see everything in between.
Mitered in. Shout out to the communication folks out there. Justin.
Communication is the only way that we can interact with another person. Whether it's a hand gesture or a sound or drawing a picture in the dirt to communicate an idea. Everything that you do that interacts with another person in any way is communication. And the better you are at that, the more effective that you can transfer your ideas to that other person, and the stronger the relationship becomes. So it's everything, 1,000% everything.
So just to play both sides in a sense, I believe communication is important. However, I believe comprehension is just as important. So if we're going to put scale of 1 to 10 communication as a 10, the fact that you said something is great. If I don't understand what you said, it means nothing.
It's like you speaking Mandarin to me. Like
100%.
I don't know what you're saying. I can't comprehend. I don't understand.
But you communicated. You said, expressed what you needed to say.
But if you don't understand, then it's not communication. It's just someone making noise.
Well, I can see that, but I also think that I'll use myself for example. There are times when my wife will tell me something, and because I'm either not present, she's communicating with me. I may not necessarily be receptive of the communication, or I just legitimately may not comprehend what it is that she is saying or she's intending, right? Or what she wants. I mean, I get that. She may say, hey, okay, on Friday, we need to do A, B, C, and D.
Right.
And then, Thursday comes and she reminds you, hey, don't forget, we need to do A, B, C. It says, well, wait. When did we talk about this?
Right. Yeah.
When was this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have intentionally worked on saying, because a lot of times, the first conversation we'll say is, oh, we didn't talk about that.
Right. Yeah.
When we did, right. There was a
present or
exactly. So what I have worked on saying is, well, I don't remember that conversation. I'm not aware of that. So it's not saying that, no, we didn't talk about that. I'm not trying to gaslight and shift her reality. I'm saying, no, we may have. I don't recall. So I think, again, to your point, Justin, the person isn't necessarily just making noise, because in their mind, they are clearly saying what they want, what they need, how they feel, whatever. If I am not in the position to receive that, if I'm not in the position to understand and really, again, comprehend what it is you are saying, like diving in and dissecting all of that, then there's going to be a misstep in that communication. And I may not necessarily be able to engage or even interact with what it is that you are saying, or even meet the expectation that you may have with that conversation. Abigail, you got something?
Yeah, actually, I like that you said that, because I think accountability plays a really big role in that too, because communication is on both sides. You can be communicating all you want, but if you're not receiving communication, you're not communicating. And and when it comes to like misunderstandings and stuff like that, like I saw something, I can't remember the wording of it and I don't want to butcher it, but I saw something on like TikTok where basically like if a mother and a daughter are fighting, or a father and a son, right? and the father's like telling his son to do something and his son isn't listening, and he just keeps telling his son to do that same thing the same way every time, you're not going to get the same results. So like if someone isn't understanding you, you have to also change your communication, communicate it differently so that they can understand you better. And I feel like a lot of people are too stubborn for that. They're like, well, I said it, I did it the way I know how to. And then they're not willing to kind of like do that work to fix it, to adjust to the people around them.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges for me in my 9 to 5, I would say 70% of my staff that reports to me directly are primarily Spanish speaking.
Right.
Your boy don't speak Spanish. Not enough to work through a full 8-hour shift. And there are things or expectations that I may have, and unless I have a translator there so that individual can comprehend what it is that I am, communicating,
Right.
it's all for naught.
Yeah.
And I may think that, he's going to do A, B, C, and D. And again, say, well, I thought you said this, because again, he's not able to comprehend or really understand what I'm saying in English.
Right.
Because, and I have to work on this. There's times when I really like to use large words, and it just didn't necessarily work that well, especially if that person doesn't necessarily speak English as their first language, or there are certain anecdotes that we may toss out that you just automatically know if English was your first language. Likewise, there may be some Spanish anecdotes that they toss out. There's a disconnect there because I don't comprehend it. So a lot of times we definitely miss out on that because of the comprehension blocks. We have another question?
Yes. This one comes from Facebook again. This is
Come through
Ladarius.
Facebook.
He asks, how was your own college life?
Phenomenal. Loved every moment of it. Would go back in a heartbeat with the information that I know now, because I would do it totally different and I would still have fun.
That part. Yeah. College for me was absolutely amazing. As AD mentioned, I'm an HBCU graduate. So, I went to school on a marching band scholarship, and I was like Mr. Homecoming and in a fraternity and student government and just all of the things. I went to school on a beach, like big flex. It's on the
Where did you
beach.
go to?
Yeah, big
Bethune-Cookman University.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one.
It's in small HBCU in Daytona Beach, Florida, founded in 1904. But
come on, history. There we go.
Listen. And let me tell y'all, the beach did not look like Galveston Beach.
That's
saying, we had
Houstonians don't consider Galveston a beach.
Yeah,
no.
It's more like a pond.
Like a swamp. Yeah.
So my college life was good. My grades were okay, because I was just having a good time and whatnot. But that's another story for another day. But it was great, Ladarius.
What about you, Justin?
I did some partying at the University of Wyoming when I was in high school, but I never went to college. So I wish that I had in some ways. The School of Hard Knocks taught me a lot, but I'm also got a lot of gaps and things that I should know, especially for the role that I feel now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to run a small business, and there's a lot of skills that I could have gained in college that I never got. So thank God for the Khan Academy. I can make up for some of that.
So Abigail mentioned this with her perspective, and I think it is a good segue to keep the questions going on our end before we wrap. So one of the things that was a challenge for me in my past was I didn't really have a core group of individuals that held me accountable. And now I am that person for most of my friends. So if there is a situation that is going on and they need like an accountability partner, or they want they want someone to hold them accountable, a lot of times they will reach out. Or in some of the groups that I'm in, that's just an understood, like that's our language. If you say you're going to do something in this group, we gonna hold you accountable for it.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
If you come in and talk about other stuff, first thing, hey, I thought you said you was doing this.
Love that.
What happened to that?
Yeah.
So how do you hold yourself accountable? Because it's great to have a team of individuals who can, add value and really pour into you when it comes to accountability. But how do you hold yourself accountable, Justin?
I don't think I really struggle with that. I'm wired to be very responsible. I don't need an alarm clock to wake up in the morning. I have my to-do list, and I don't feel good about myself if I don't get all the things on that done. I'm super self-motivated, but I also realize that that's unusual. That a lot of people aren't wired that way, and so I'm grateful that I have this. But it's allowed me to accomplish a lot of things. I'm in the middle of writing my 8th book right now, on top of a full-time job and a construction nightmare at our business, and all of the rest of challenges that go on with life. And that's I work every waking moment of every day in some capacity, rather than doing a lot of goofing off and sitting around on the couch watching TV. But that's because I've had this inner need to accomplish things, and I like the feeling that I get when I get things done.
That's
And
good.
so
That's good.
that's my motivation. I know that when I get this thing done, that I'm going to feel a certain way about it, and then I'm going to move on to the next thing. And there's a never-ending line of those things.
Well, you're definitely an exception to the rule when it comes to accountability from that perspective. Kudos to you, my brother. And one thing, accountability can sometimes seem or come off as an attack in a sense when you are not ready for a certain level of accountability. So, Zab, how do you keep yourself or hold yourself accountable?
Yeah, I'm Justin and I are very different because, and I need the 8th book. I'm super impressed. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you after the show because I need some gems on that.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. But I'm always going to go back to Instagram. I love this Instagram meme that said, essentially, you have to get tired of your own crap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, show yourself grace, but also know that I need to get it together. And I feel like I'm in those moments more often than not, where I'll do something and then complacency or life will hit. Like, it doesn't have to be, I mean, that's a reason, not necessarily an excuse, but it doesn't even have to be life. It can just be like, okay, something else has my attention or whatnot. Yeah. So ultimately, I get to those points where I'm just like, bro, you are repeating the same cycles. And I always believe that, like, the way the enemy will distract you one time, he's going, yeah, how he got me last time, how he going to get me every single time. And so I get to that point, I'm tired of my own crap, and I'm realizing, like, okay, well, I'm 35 and I haven't done this, I haven't accomplished this. And it's not in a comparison way. Yeah. It's like, no, it's me against me.
Yeah.
It's 34-year-old me. It's 30-year-old me, just realizing these are some things that I set out to do. What am I doing in order to get to that level? So a lot of times I do have to fast. A lot of times I do have to get off social media or distract myself from certain conversations or shows when I'm like, okay, bro, you are off your A game. You have been off your A game for quite some time. And I think it's, again, that relationship ties back into my relationship with God, and the Holy Spirit just like prompting me, like, bro, like, tighten up. You gotta get to it. So
yeah, so I like to call them my mirror moments. All right, so individuals typically come to me for advice or whatever. I've always been the person that people just seek, in a sense, for whatever reason. Even when I was in high school and college, it was just, hey, AD, what do you think about this? So the same voice that I use when giving positive feedback, criticism, critique, whatever, that I would offer or submit to someone else, that voice pops up when I have those mirror moments. So it's legitimately like me looking at myself in the mirror and having a conversation.
Yeah.
That voice is saying, well, you said you wanted to do this.
Right. Yeah.
But you haven't done anything.
Nope.
How do you feel about that? So you said that you wanted to get
but how do you feel about that?
Yeah. And just giving myself space to really answer, well, I feel like this, or I feel like this. I feel, like I'm not necessarily a man of my word, because I said that I wanted to do this thing, and I have yet to, take the steps necessary to execute on those things. Because at the end of the day, execution is really the end goal, right? We have individuals who are creative. Justin has, with book number 1, his first, creative thought that came from that book. There was a process that came to the book coming to its fruition. And there was an execution stamp that he could put on that book. Now he's working on number 8, right? So with me, whether it is a fitness goal, whether it is a health goal, whether it is a relational goal, making sure that I am more present with my family. My wife doesn't know this, but like there are different communities that I'm a part of on my, that I have access to on my phone.
Yeah.
And, when I come home from work, I do my best to either set this aside or limit the amount of time that I have there, so that I can be present with my wife, with my son, because she's with him all day because she's at home. She works from home. I'm away. I typically am out about 12 hours, not only for work but commute, running errands, and things of that nature. Yeah. So just giving and investing, that hour, 2 hours of time that we have before he goes to bed is very important. And then when I don't do those things, having that mirror moment was like, okay, well, you said you wanted to be present, but
yeah.
You were on a Zoom call with the fraternity for an hour and a half, 2 hours. You were on a coaching call for this long. You were on an accountability call for this long. You were doing all these other things, and they were just sitting there waiting for you.
You know, how you structure your time and how you prioritize the things that you do in your day is how all of that stuff happens or doesn't happen.
And it says a lot about you.
Mm-hmm.
It says a lot about you, right? If you're someone who, you know, to Justin's point, if he doesn't need an alarm clock to wake up, God bless you. Your boy needs one.
I need a couple.
So with
how
one
you
in the bathroom
things are, with one in the bathroom, gotta go get up to turn that one off. How you structure everything is important, and I think that having those moments really gives you the opportunity to really see what it is you are prioritizing when you have that introspective look. We have another question.
Yeah, just one more question because we left out the YouTube crowd. So this will be a question from YouTube. This is Darnell. He asked, if you had a chance, would you like to go back in your past and advise yourself something?
So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with, you know, what you would say to your, you know, young self. But there's a part of me that thinks that if I were to tell my young self that information, that my current life would be different. And I don't know if that'd be different, like good different, or precipitously badder, like worse. I don't know how because, you know, of course we watch, you know, movies and things like that, and, you know, you change something, it changes everything. So, you know, if I tell my young self to do these things, and I had the opportunity to go to HBCU, but my mother at the time was like, no, you don't need to do that. Go here. Like, what would have happened had I stayed and made that decision? What would have happened if I stayed in this relationship? If I didn't stay in this relationship? What would happen if I was not in a relationship? What if I was just a student, not a student athlete? Justin, what about you? What are your thoughts on those things?
Man, I don't think that I would change anything at all. You know, I had a very long, hard road for the first 35 years of my life, but because of all of those experiences, I'm able to be who I am today. And I have the perspective to understand what I've got and what things could be like rather than how they are. And I think that's really important, because if I set myself up for success, then I wouldn't have any idea what I had. You know, I need to fail. I need to go through some pain, and I need to grow.
That's good.
So
what about
keep it as it is.
Man, there's a song by Devin J. Morrison called Love Yourself. And it's like, you gotta love yourself first. And then it ends, you gotta put God first. So I think the advice that I would tell my younger self is to love yourself. And that sounds like super high level. That sounds super cliche, but like the reality is, you know, of course, looking back, I can say this now, but, you know, when I was out, you know, being promiscuous or partying or, you know, just not studying like I should, and just kind of like being out there. It was because I did not love myself. And I'm able to like talk to like close friends, just like, you know, when we were maneuvering at 19 years old, 20 years old, like we did those things because we didn't truly love ourselves. And now that, again, I work with youth all the time, it's just like, I'm able to pinpoint like, okay, if you're fighting in high school, you don't love yourself. You have something going on. Like people who love themselves just operate, they just move differently. So I would advise my younger self.
There's a certain peace that comes with that too.
To just love yourself and put God first, because I'm like Ike, who grew up in the church, right? But still, you know, I remember just like thinking like, man, I don't have a story. I don't have anything crazy that has happened to me. And years later, God was like, nothing crazy has to happen to you. You know what I mean? But you did make bad decisions. There were opportunities where you didn't truly love yourself. You weren't, by God's grace, on drugs, on the street, or something completely traumatic, right? But there are things that I've saved you from. And yeah. So love yourself and put God first. What I would advise my younger self, Darnell.
That's good. Abigail?
What would I advise my younger self? Honestly,
not that you're just, you know, that old.
So last week, Abigail.
Yes, right. You know, I always never felt like I struggled with the self-love thing. I've always been pretty confident in like who I am, how I look, that kind of thing. But something that I struggle with, that I wish I would have been better about going for, or in the past, is setting boundaries with people.
That's good.
Because I do love myself, but I don't make other people love me in the sense that like I kind of would let people walk all over me, or maybe not speak up at a time where I probably should have, like, and even not even just against me, like just standing up for the right thing. So that's something I wish I would have done growing up, or like even in like my early adulthood, because I'm only 24, but in my early adulthood, I definitely wish I would have just been better about setting those boundaries and like cutting people off who don't respect those boundaries.
That's good. Chris, we have any more questions?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That'll be the last question. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up.
Good. So one thing I would like to open the door for both of our phenomenal guests. Can we give a round of applause for Justin and Xav as they've been here, just been doing the thing?
Wrong one.
No, they're laughing at you in the back.
Right. I'm
That's a
like,
round of
what are we
applause,
doing?
you know what I'm saying? Because it's been phenomenal. Like always, I didn't expect anything different. But are there any final thoughts as we close this conversation? The Men of Steel series, leave it in the past. Any final thoughts you may have, Xavier?
Yeah, I do. As I was driving here, I was just meditating on leaving the past in the past, and I want to talk to if I can, I want to talk to
single them out. There's your camera. Go ahead.
The studio audience, the audience watching on YouTube, Facebook, and those who will be watching a little bit later. So, in thinking about the past being the past, I want you to think about that mindset that you have. Focus on the mindset that you used to have and the mindset that you have now, and the reality is that so many of us had mindsets and belief patterns and systems and limiting beliefs and fears and doubts galore that served us when we were 18, 19, 20, 25. But now at your big grown age, it's not serving you anymore. So leaving the past in the past starts with that mindset. It starts with understanding that like God's mercies are new every single morning, and he can renew your mind if you allow him to renew your mind. So change your mindset, change your path, and know that the past is just that, the past. But guess what? Your story, who you are, you being a new person with that new mindset will be able to encourage so many more people if you allow yourself to go there. So that's the final thought that I have.
That's good stuff, bro. Justin, what you got?
I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned, and this is with the help of a therapist, is that I had to forgive myself for not being perfect and not knowing everything. When I was a third grade kid, I held myself to this expectation of perfection. And when I was a 12th grade kid, I held myself to this expectation of perfection. And I am the culmination of all of my experiences and all the things that I've learned. And today I am the very best version of me that I've ever been. But that doesn't mean that the previous versions of me weren't okay. I can forgive myself for not knowing everything when I was 10. And I can forgive myself for not knowing everything when I was 25 or 35 or 45. If I had known everything then I wouldn't have grown or changed. I think it's just really important for me to be able to accept all of the younger iterations of myself and the mistakes that I made and the path that I went through, which wasn't the best path. I could have done a whole lot better, but it's okay that I did what I did because it got me where I am, and I've learned and I've grown and I've changed. And that's the important thing.
That's good.
Love that.
Good.
And
So-
could you guys also tell us like where we can find you and your experience on the Love and Victory show today?
Oh my gosh. So this is my first time on the Love and Victory show. So thank you to the Carters for having me. My experience was great. Like I said, Adonis is one of my greatest friends out here in Houston. I mean, ever since we met, just like kindred spirits.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for the opportunity to even just serve and just share my voice. So I love the Love and Victory show. That kind of rhymes, like love. So hopefully the Carters will definitely have me back, and definitely follow. I'm not hard to find. Xav, Xav Handfield, like a hand on a field. So you can go to XavHandfield.com. I'm a speaker. If you are a foodie like me or you love health and wellness, definitely find me on all social media platforms. The Plant-Based Brother with an A. And if you're a business professional, I know some of you all are watching, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Xav, Xav Handfield. So I love to connect with you on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, just all of the things, my website. And when you find me, tell me that you watched the show, and I would love to keep up the conversation.
Good stuff. Justin, where can we find you? Even though we know you're in Florida.
The great state of Florida.
That's right. My author website is J Boyd Long. That's JBoydLong.com. Back when I started all this, I thought I was going to be a sci-fi writer, and so I went with J Boyd Long instead of my full name. But I do a lot of my nonfiction stuff, which is where I've really grown as Justin B. Long. But it's all the same website at jboydlong.com. I do have links to my social media there, but I don't do a whole lot on social media these days. I feel like it's kind of the AI thing that's ending the world started in social media, and I'm trying not to participate in that. But I am very reachable. I'm happy to engage in any way, and whether that's talking about how to create books or set goals or purpose your time better or just grow and be a better version of yourself, I'm here for you. jboydlong.com.
Good stuff, Justin. Just a word of advice. You may want to go ahead, if you don't already have one, drop a masterclass on how to get them books out, because you got 8, and there's plenty of people that want to get books out.
That part.
And I promise you they will pay for a class. My final thought, we talked about leaving the past in the past, and I believe the most important thing for someone to really focus on, if you're going to leave the past in the past, is to really believe and hope for a better future. Without that belief, without that hope, without that aspiration, and that something greater is out there, you will continue to revert back to the past that you are trying to leave. So press forward towards the mark, whatever that is for you. If that means being a better parent, being a better husband, being a better person, being a better human, whatever that means for you, strive for that and continue to move forward, because that is where your future is. It's not behind you. Before we dip out of here, we want to make sure that you are following the Love and Victory Show with Val across all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Make sure you stop what you're doing, download that application, and make sure you sign up for that newsletter, because we want to make sure that you are in the know with each and every new thing that is coming with the Love and Victory Show with Val. We'll see you next time right here